joining us, and also for our friends on the West Coast and email clients. I know it's very early in your day, but I hope you have your cup of coffee and sit back and enjoy the presentation. A few things on the format for today's sessions. Recently, we've had some confusion because eMain holds so many different types of webinars. So I want to tell you a little bit about today's session is part of our Best Practices series. Unlike other webinars where we're doing product demonstrations, what we'll be doing today is we've invited an industry expert, Ralph Peters, to present today's topic on optimizing the value of your CMMS. And what we've recognized in doing these webinars through the years is for our clients to be successful, it's not just about how the features of eMate works, but how do we apply a CMMS to really make our business successful. So Ralph Peters is going to be doing the presentation today. He is the president and founder of the Maintenance Excellence Institute. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Ralph, he's a highly recognized leader around the world in implementing maintenance best practices, developing productivity measurements, and initiating long-term operational improvement processes in both the public and private sector. He's also the author of hundreds of articles and is a frequent speaker around the world on maintenance topics. And I know that Ralph has done other webinars for us where he's in other countries. So Ralph, are you with me on the line today?
Yes, I'm here.
Well, Ralph, thanks so much for putting this together, and we really do appreciate you sharing your system and your knowledge today. And let me just also tell our listeners that we are recording today's session, and we'll share the link with everyone that attended. And Ralph has been kind enough to stay throughout the full hour and answer any questions you might have. So if you do have questions, please feel free to type them at any time into the questions feature of GoToWebinar, and then I will ask them of Ralph at the end of the session. We're also going to be doing several polls today because we really do want to know where you are in the spectrum of your CMMS implementation, whether you're just considering a system, you're using Maint, or you have other systems. So you'll want to have your keyboard ready to be able to type your responses. So I think that's it for the housekeeping. So without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to you, Ralph.
Okay. Well, good morning, and it's a pleasure to do another webinar for eMate. The title of this one is Maximize the Value of Your CMMS System. At the Maintenance Excellence Institute, briefly, we do traditional training. Well, not traditional, but we think it's extraordinary training in maintenance best practices, and we also do typical maintenance consulting. What I'd like to do today is first cover some of the key benefits that you should be receiving from a CMMS system, and then we'll look at what we call the CMMS Benchmarking System, which will help you to evaluate where you are with the current CMMS system. Okay, on this slide you'll see a graphic that shows us that next slide, or next, hit the neck there. Okay, we may use a CMMS system to feed a project management system. In some cases, that is the situation. But typically, the next click, but the next click and another click, but it is a good way to update a project management system for shutdowns, turnarounds, outages, and so forth. But normally we use it day to day, developing our final work list, another click, and which goes into our daily schedules. It goes into our work that's completed, and of course we may have, of course, work breakdown structures, work schedules, and then of course completed work orders, which go into our asset database for all types of information that can be of benefit to us. And of course, the important thing is to have a good work order with good, accurate information going into that work order for a lot of good things that can come from it, from that data. Next slide, please. Now, what I'm asking is, what are some of the benefits of a CMS that can be expected? And the second question is, what is the main benefit that you're not receiving currently? Okay, so think about those as we cover these next 9 basic benefits. Now, the first one is improved parts and materials availability. This is very important, of course, to have well-organized storerooms, good, accurate inventory records, a good stock locator system, accurate stock levels, having a good catalog of parts, and really that helps improve the overall maintenance operation, particularly in our planning area. And the second area, of course, is having the right part at the right time. Now, a very important benefit is improved work control. Here we have better work management with improved control of the work request by the crafts. We can monitor backlogs. Here we determine priorities. We can make scheduling decisions for scheduling overtime effectively. But this is the key to a good process of control. And as I said before, the work order is the foundation of a good work management system. One of the situations that occurs is not getting good information back from the craft workforce. So we have to have full accountability of craft time, labor, and cost to the work orders, which then accrues, of course, to the asset history, and in some cases ensures chargebacks to the customers or the tenants. And in many organizations, this chargeback is important. We encourage it so that you know where your maintenance budget is going. So therefore, the customer knows maybe in the budgeting process how much money they have in their maintenance budget. So this is another way to get them involved in accountability of maintenance work and doing the right maintenance work at the right time. Okay, next slide. Next slide. Back up one, please. Okay, improved planning and scheduling. Now this one is very important too, and it's important to have a process in place and have the systems, of course, such as a good CMMS that will help you, and the procedures to establish more effective day-to-day maintenance planning. And of course, this contributes to improved craft labor productivity and customer service to operations. For example, when we have a good scheduling process, we're telling the customer that, you know, we are going to be doing this work at this time, and we need the equipment. Therefore, we're, you know, they're expecting us to do the work, and we're expecting them to have the equipment available for repair. And again, it's an important benefit. And as I say many times, we must plan for maintenance excellence because it does not occur naturally. And planning, along with estimating, is one area that I see that many organizations may have a planning, scheduling process, but it's really not working. It's just like, as I see in many organizations, they're not getting the maximum value from their CMMS. And many times when they do have planning and scheduling, they're not getting maximum benefit from that planning and scheduling process as well. Okay, next slide. Well, of course, Preventive Predictive Maintenance. Here we can have the automatic scheduling of repetitive PM or predictive tasks, and where we'll have in that database the inspection frequencies, which are documented on the PM module and then printed as part of the PM work order. Here, CMS enhances the PM by providing a method to monitor failure trends and to highlight major causes of equipment breakdowns and unscheduled repairs. Here again, we get back to the work order, where we hopefully have a good system for failure codes and cause of failure. And another thing related to preventive maintenance is we might have a system set up where we find a minor problem and fix it, or we may find a problem that can be later scheduled. And this is one great benefit, of course, of both preventive and predictive, is that we find failures that are starting to occur and we catch them before catastrophic failure, and therefore save a lot of time and increase a lot of uptime of our equipment. Okay, MRO Materials Management. This is where we have more effective management and control of material parts, maintenance parts, our critical spares, and overall material inventories. Here we have information for decisions on inventory reduction. That's readily available. And here we can identify parts usage, possibly excess inventory levels, and of course obsolete parts, which often is an issue with many companies. Okay, next slide. Now, we talked about the work order. Here's where the work order helps us with improved reliability analysis. We have, through CMMS, a means to track work orders and equipment history data and relate it to various types of repairs, the frequency, and causes of failure. Here's the information that we can use for RCM, reliability-centered maintenance analyses, and is very valuable to us when we're looking at root causes of failure. So we can have that key information on failure trends, and helps us eliminate root causes of failure, and of course helps us improve overall equipment reliability. Next, please. Now, in terms of budget, I've always said that we've got to look at maintenance as a business, as an internal business. So with budget accountability via our CMMS, we have greater accountability for craft labor, parts materials, through the work order, and that storeroom inventory module. We have increased level of control, greater visibility, and of course accountability of the overall maintenance budget by individual piece of equipment, and as I said before, possibly by the using department, which I think is always good to have a way to see how the various departments or work units are doing with their maintenance budget. Also, we can look at better decisions for replacement and renovation decisions for equipment and other building systems, and they can be supported by the various information due to life cycle costing from our CMMS. So our CMMS system provides us a good picture of our budget accountability. It can also, in another area, related to backlog, it can show the deferred maintenance. It can show the total and current backlog, all of which, can be impacted by our current budget or our future budget needs. Okay. Next slide. one of the things that we really try to emphasize in our work is to have the clients measure performance and service. So with a good CMMS, you've got a vast source of information to allow more effective measurement of maintenance performance and your service to provide that measurement of improvements. For example, areas like craft labor productivity, where we can measure craft utilization, craft performance, craft service quality. We can measure PM compliance. We can measure downtime levels or percent uptime. We can look at our storeroom inventory accuracy. We can look at our levels of backlog, level of maintenance service, our customer service, based on our schedule compliance, and then, of course, various reliability indicators. So we have a lot of information that I'd say 90% comes from the work order. Some possibly would come from the financial system. But most of all, we've got the information in the CMMS that's going to help us measure our own performance and validate those best practices that we might need to move forward. And one of the things that CMMS does is, of course, enhances best practices, and that's a key thing to remember is, and that's why we try to emphasize as we work with companies to help them improve or help them implement CMMS, particularly improve CMMS, is to implement those best practices such as planning and scheduling, improve storeroom, and so that they can get the benefits that are there from a good CMMS system. Okay, next slide. Well, it boils down to increased level of maintenance information. It comes from, as this benefit comes from developing historical database that hopefully is readily available as critical maintenance information. So an effective CMMS, if you've got the data correct, you've got your reporting set up, it helps turn data into information you can use to manage maintenance as an internal business. There's a big difference between data and information. So that is what we're trying to find is information to manage maintenance as an internal business. Now, we look at question number 1, which will pop up. Which one of these areas have you not received from your operation? And there are 9. And some of you may be in the process of implementing a CMMS. Some of you may be in the process of evaluating a CMMS system for implementation. But all 9 areas must be a part of your thought process as you move forward to get the total benefits from a CMMS system.
Great. So if you can just type your responses right on into the keyboard. And Ralph has spoken so far about 9 major categories of benefits. And he'd like to know which of the major benefits you're not currently realizing today. So you can put in more than one answer, all right, and just list which of those today you're not currently receiving because you don't have a system in place or you don't feel you're realizing the full benefit. So it looks like we've had about 70% of the votes in, so we'll leave this screen open again. Just please type the responses right into your keyboard. And we'll give it a few more seconds now while people are still voting. Okay, let me go ahead then and close this one and share the results. All right, Ralph, you want to kind of recap the results?
Well, The improved parts and materials availability is not surprising, and of course MRO Materials Management, which connects with that. We have seen that often, for example, if we have a planning and scheduling process, it is impacted by the parts availability. And we have done work with a lot of companies around the world which are in remote areas, and the parts and materials availability is a key factor. And here you can see improved planning and scheduling, improved or enhanced preventive predictive maintenance. So this gives a good picture, particularly of the two areas that I say must work closely together, and that's, of course, work control, but the planning and scheduling and parts availability, and, of course, the procurement process. These three must work to make the scheduling process work and to really make a three-pronged effort to make planning and scheduling successful. Okay?
All right, so let's go ahead then. Would you like me to launch the next poll question for the other 4 benefits? Let me go ahead and do that. And if you can say if there are any of these benefits that you're not yet realizing. And I do realize some people have said, well, we haven't realized any benefit yet because we haven't implemented a system. And you know, Ralph is very cognizant of that, and what he's put together here can apply whether you're preparing to implement a system and want to understand all the different ways it can impact your business, or if you have a system and want to be able to see if you're utilizing it to its fullest. So, okay, looks like about 2/3 of the votes are in, so let's see. I'll leave it open a few more seconds. Oh, still getting some votes. I appreciate y'all sharing your feedback here. All right, I think let's close it up and share the results, Ralph, and let me know what you think.
Okay. Well, here we see increased capability to measure performance and service. This one, I think, as you begin your CMMS process, and particularly after we talk about the next session of doing an assessment or an audit before you begin your implementation, we've got to have ways to measure performance and service. And I don't know if we've done this one or not, Rona, but measuring performance is very important. And of course, all are important. Budget accountability, you know, is related to having good control of your work orders, getting good information on the work orders, work accomplished, hours, parts, equipment rentals, and so forth. But this is a you know, good indication that increased budget accountability and capability to measure performance are important to the survey group here. So what I'm trying to do is just give you some of the major benefits. Now, next we're going to look at a process, well, a way to help improve the overall culture for CMMS acceptance. And next slide. Well, during the evaluation and selection is to involve the total operation. We encourage a team-based process, leadership-driven, self-managed team that does this. We encourage you to conduct a scoreboard for maintenance excellence assessment or an audit of any type to define your best practice needs. Concurrent with a team to manage the total process, we need a good implementation team. And this could be a sub-team that works on the parts, a sub-team that works on the asset information, getting the asset numbers, asset information into the database, and then, of course, effective vendor support. This is so very important, and as you consider or continue to implement your current system. Have a realistic plan, and of course understand other best practices are needed, and have a plan for implementation of these best practices. So you can see here you might have some concurrent projects ongoing. For example, getting a planning process going, or maybe even getting a good work order system going with accuracy. But we've got to ensure that the key databases are accurate, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. And then, of course, we must gain commitment from within maintenance and other parts of the organization. And oftentimes, getting acceptance and commitment within maintenance can be a major challenge. And last but not least, I always emphasize implement effective maintenance planning and scheduling. No matter how small or how large an organization, this best practice is needed. So think about this. We've got to show the return on your investment. Show me the money and improve customer service. Okay, next. Why conduct an assessment? Say using our scoreboard for maintenance excellence. Here we're defining where we are with today's best practices. And we really need to completely understand those best practices that are needed, and then define benefits from our CMMS and our best practices. Most of the time, the best practices are going to help us get the return on investment, to get the gain value, direct savings, increased uptime. So you've got to show that these elements are helping you provide well-defined benefits. And to do that, you've got to have key performance metrics related to those best practices that you define. Now, that's one of the things we like to encourage is if you show where planning and scheduling is going to improve, let's say uptime. You need to define what is the value of downtime. You know, what is the value of downtime? Also, wrench time. Particularly planning and scheduling is going to increase wrench time, and there is a gain value of that. And it's our measurement, which we call overall craft effectiveness and craft utilization, is that wrench time. When we increase wrench time, we are gaining capacity from the labor factor of maintenance. When we increase overall equipment effectiveness, we are increasing the productivity of the asset. And what we have used is what we call the Maintenance Excellence Index, or Reliable Maintenance Excellence Index. And we encourage monthly reporting of results with that tool. So, question number 2.
All right, we have a poll question that Ralph is asking. Did your operation define best practices with an assessment prior to implementing? And those of you that haven't yet implemented, perhaps you can say if it's your intention to do so. All right, simple yes, no answer. About 2/3 of you have entered your answers. We'll leave it open about 10 more seconds. All right, looks like we have the votes are in, Ralph, so let me share the results.
Okay, it's mostly no, okay? And again, every project that we've had, it's been important to do an assessment because it helps us with the justification, number one, of CMMS, the cost of it and the cost of running it over time. So I encourage you somehow, some way, to take a close look at best practices via self-assessment, via third-party assessment, or whatever, to look at what best practices do you need to make CMMS maximize the value of CMMS, because that's what it does. You know, integrating those best practices does that. Now, we have used 4 benchmarking tools. We're going to talk about the CMMS Benchmarking System next, and I just mentioned the Maintenance Excellence Index, which measures at the shop floor level. Of course, the CMMS benchmarking system is focused on your CMMS. It does not compare one CMMS against the other. It's your CMMS, either present or future, and the scoreboard for maintenance excellence, which is our audit assessment process. And then last, the ACE team benchmarking process, which helps us define estimated times for typical maintenance jobs. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about the CMMS benchmarking system and why it was developed. Basically, for gaining maximum value from an investment. Information technology for the business of maintenance. And to evaluate how well an existing CMMS, how its functionality is being used. Again, I said many times I've seen situations where the functionality available is not being used. And again, it's a way to benchmark your current installation. Again, it doesn't compare Maximo with eMate or eMate with Micromain or anything like that. It's just a way to baseline how well your CMMS is supporting best practices. And it can be used as a baseline to measure the success of a future CMMS implementation. And we've used this, and basically you do implementation, hopefully with good best practices, and you do the evaluation that I'm going to show you shortly. And you can do this 6 months after what you say implementation is complete. Then you do it 6 months later and 6 months later, so you can see progress in your level of scores for your current implementation. Okay, next slide. When we benchmark a CMMS system, it provides a means to classify your installation as either Class A, B, C, or D. There are 9 major categories, 50 specific evaluation items, and each evaluation that is rated as being accomplished satisfactorily receives a maximum score of 4 points. Okay, next slide. Next slide. If an area is currently being worked on, a score of 1, 2, or 3 points can be assigned based on the level of progress achieved. For example, if a parts inventory accuracy is at 92% compared to the target of 95%, 98%, then say 3 points is given. Okay, next point. Now, this is not an exact science, but it's a handy benchmarking tool for your specific operation. Okay, next point. So there's a maximum of 200 points and a benchmark rating of Class A is within 180 and 200 points. And next page we'll see the evaluation categories. Now this is what's important, and I think you'll see why I mentioned data integrity. That's number one. Education and training. That's where our vendor comes in. That's where our in-house super users come in. Work control, budget cost control, planning, scheduling, MRO Materials Management in our storeroom, Preventive, Predictive, Maintenance Performance Measurement, and CMMS for continuous improvement. So you can see this follows basically some of our major 9 benefits that we talked previously about. Okay, now here's the point range for Class A, B, C, and D. Okay, now start thinking, next. Okay, now start thinking about your operation. Okay, and now the next slides, I would like for you to try to evaluate each point as we go. And just simply list 1, 2, 3 through 50. Okay. Now, if an item is being accomplished, it receives a maximum score of 4. If an area is currently being worked on, it's 1, 2, or 3. Of course, if nothing is being done, a score of 0 is given. So what I'd like for you to do right now, and I know those of you that don't have the CMMS can't evaluate this correctly, but just in your mind, before you benchmark your CMMS, which class do you think your CMMS will be in? Will it be in A, B, C, or D? Just think about that, knowing what your system is currently doing, where you are with implementation, maybe what you're doing without a CMMS system. But what we'll do next is look at those individual 50 criteria and see what your actual score may be if you have time to complete them as we finish up.
Great. Well, it looks like we have the votes in, so let me share the results of the self-assessment.
Okay. Well, this hits it right on the head when I do this in some of our true workshops. Most people actually come up as a Class C. When they go through this in detail, they come up in Class C. Very few in Class A, as we see here, 4%. So this is interesting. This is really interesting. Okay?
All right.
Okay, now let's look at the individual categories and the individual criteria. Now, for example, just take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in this area. And for one, look at your data integrity. Is it complete and accurate at 95% or better? Is it a 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0? Our spare parts inventory, master record, 95% better or better. What about our bill of materials for critical equipment? Includes listing of critical spare parts. Now, our database for preventive maintenance task frequencies. Is it complete for 95% of applicable assets? Now, the last two, I think, are very important, and I've seen this particularly for the parts inventory, well, both in a refining operation. Direct responsibilities for maintaining the parts inventory database is assigned and specified specifically both for maintaining the parts inventory and especially the maintenance equipment asset database is assigned. And this means both bringing items in and getting obsolete items out, obsolete parts and or obsolete equipment out of the system. So hopefully you've had the chance to evaluate these 6 items. Now, CMMS education and training. So very, very important. Initial training, orientation training for all maintenance employees. We've got to address the individual crafts person and their responsibilities. The responsibilities for the planner, the responsibilities for the storeroom staff, and others. And then, number 8, ongoing CMMS training for maintenance and storeroom employees. I've seen this many times, that particularly with, I'll just go ahead and mention it, with SAP programs. They've installed SAP, and they haven't trained anybody since the first initial orientation. And also, number 9, we need to have orientation training for the operations employees. So they understand and, of course, have buy-in. And number 10, very, very important, of course, is having a systems administrator and a backup designated and trained. This is a super user. This is one of the key people. Many times, if you have a good planner, they become a super user, because many times a planner will be called on to generate some of the reports at the end of the period, typically a monthly period. Work control, number 11, we've got a well-documented process, and typically this is written or established around the particular CMMS system we're using. We have online request or manual system is used to request work based on priorities. Here we need to make sure that the operations side understands our priorities, and that, of course, all work can't be completed as a top priority. 13, the work order system is used to account for 100% of all craft hours available. We had one organization was very concerned about the time of their craft employees. So we set this as one of the initial metrics. Well, over time, the technicians got used to reporting everything on a work order. So later on, we took that out of the Maintenance Excellence Index and didn't worry about it anymore. We also need, number 14, backlog reports. Prepared by type of work to include estimated hours. And this is important to have good, reliable estimated hours. And then, as I mentioned before, number 15 is a well-defined priority system based on criticality of equipment, safety factors, cost of downtime, etc. Number 15. I hope you're able to go along and rate your areas, your CMMS as we go. Budget and cost control, here's where we're charging everything, labor, parts, vendor support, charts of the work order, and accounted for in the equipment asset history file. 17, budget status on maintenance expenditures by operating departments is available. Whether you use it as a guide or the operation departments use it as a budget target, it doesn't matter, but it's important to see where that maintenance, the maintenance dollars are going. 18, have we seen cost improvements due to CMS? And best practice implementations have been documented. Number 18. Number 19, deferred maintenance and repairs are identified in management during the budgeting process. This would come from our backlog information, where we're trying to show top leaders how much deferred maintenance that we have and how much they're gambling with maintenance costs by deferring certain maintenance that has been deferred. Number 20, life cycle costing is supported by monitoring of repair costs compared to the replacement value. So this one sometimes is done if you have the correct information. Planning and scheduling, we have a documented process, again, based on the current CMS that has been established. Typically this is a written document that's part of your SOPs and not a major amount of work, but it is a documented process. 22, the level of proactive plan work is monitored and documented improvements have occurred. In other words, we're measuring plan work versus emergency work. 23, as I mentioned, craft utilization or true wrench time is measured and documented improvements have occurred. 24, we have daily or weekly work schedules are available for planned work. Key part of the planning and scheduling process. 25, the status of parts on order is available for support to the planning process. This is important to have the visibility of the status of parts that are on order so that we can have a picture as to when we may be able to schedule particularly critical repairs to critical equipment. 26, scheduling coordination between maintenance and operations has increased. And that's one of the things that must happen if we're going to have a good scheduling process. Good coordination between maintenance and operations. Emergency repairs, hours, and cost tracked, analyzed for reduction. Here we take information on emergency work and we see, is it being reduced? Okay, next slide. MRO Materials Management, 28, the inventory management module is fully utilized and integrated with the work order module. 29, inventory cycle counting based on defined criteria is being used and inventory accuracy is 95% or better. Parts kitting is available for staging and is used for planned jobs. 31, electronic requisitioning capability is available and used. 32, the critical or capital spares are designated in the parts inventory master record database. A good feature of most systems is 33, a reorder notification for stock items is generated and used for reorder decisions. Another good one is warranty information and status is available. In other words, if we have a new item come in, even a part, that we're able to find it in the database, and if that piece of equipment comes up, it'll notify us that warranty is in effect and we may be able to recoup some of our expenses from the OEM or vendor. The next one. Again, we have this in an Excel spreadsheet, and as I'll say on the last slide, we'll be glad to send this to you for you to use as you go forward. Also for preventive predictive, We've got a good change process in place for continuous review and update of tasks and frequencies. First of all, you've got them all in place, but do you review them? And a lot of times the technicians are one of your best sources. They can provide good feedback to you. 36, PM compliance is measured and overall compliance is 98% or better. 37, we do have a long-range PM schedule that's available, and we try to level load it as needed with the CMMS. You know, a good feature of the CMMS is to be able to level load so we don't have to have all the annuals done in the same time frame. Also, lube service specification tasks and frequencies are included in the CMMS database. Now, 39, we are looking at some reliability information. Mean time between failure, mean time to repair, failure trends, and other reliability data are shown. So, does your system allow you to do that? And 40 is that do your task descriptions contain enough information for new craftspeople, technicians to perform the task? This is where you've gotten to the level of having good detailed information. Now, measurement, first of all, downtime availability due to maintenance is measured, and documented improvements have occurred. One point here, know the downtime costs at your site of major assets, or if you're in a process operation, what is the cost of downtime? Craft performance against estimated repair times is measured and documented. Improvements have occurred. So in other words, if we have good estimated times, we can measure the relative craft performance of our craft workforce. Also, customer service levels, 43, are measured and documented. Improvements have occurred. So here is where we're trying to be customer-centered and showing that our schedules are being accomplished. 44, we've got a well-established performance measurement process, and it's based on multiple indicators compared to baseline performance values. And in terms of a baseline, typically you would start the system measurement. You might start for a period of 4 to 6 weeks, and that becomes your baseline if you don't have any additional baseline information. But what we want to do is show the progress of improvement on these various metrics that we select. Okay, next. Okay, other use of CMMS. Do maintenance leaders use CMMS to manage maintenance as an internal business? Okay, this is a general use of CMMS, and if we have it implemented, they're going to be able to manage maintenance as a business with the work order system, with planning and scheduling, with performance indicators. 46, does the operations staff understand CMMS, and do they use it for better maintenance service? One that's important from an engineering standpoint is changes related to equipment or asset data, drawings, and specifications. Are they effectively implemented, and do we get changes updated as we need to have them updated in the engineering database? The hierarchies of systems or subsystems used for equipment asset numbering in the database. Now, has this numbering system been set up to the level that is needed to help us define reliability? In other words, have we defined it down to a subsystem that there is a concern for reliability that we need to have information on? So in some cases, it may not be defined down to that subsystem level of a major item. 49, failure and repair codes are used to track trends for reliability improvement. Number 49. And number 50, last, is do we have a maintenance standard task database available and used for recurring planned jobs? Typically, this is something the planner would have and be able to use the standard task over and over again to do estimating. Now, I don't know if you've had a chance to complete this as we've gone and to add it up to get your scores. But some of you that are highly mathematical may have done this. So if you do have an estimate, please enter it.
Okay, this will be our final poll question now that Ralph has shared the criteria. And maybe you haven't been keeping score, but now that you've seen all the different 50 criteria in the 9 categories that he's presented, do your best to kind of assess where you are currently in the system. And as Ralph has indicated, we'll be making available, first we'll be sending from marketing a link to the recording of today's session if you want to go back and review. And Ralph will also be sending each of you an Excel version of the benchmarking system. All right, so let's see where you are. It looks like the votes are in, so let me go ahead and share that.
Okay, well, the numbers have shifted a little bit. There's now 2% at Class A and 47 at Class C, and then I think we've increased some Class D. Well, again, these are not absolute values, but it's just a benchmark of where you are now with your current system. And again, it's something to look at and use for your future system to think about. And I developed this, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, and we've used it in all of our work, and it's a good way to show where you are with your system, some of the areas you need to improve upon. So again, we will send you the Excel version of this that you can use. One other thing, I'd like to invite you to look at our website, www.prideandmaintenance.com, and become a Pride member, of course, at no cost. And you'll have available a lot of the articles that we have on our site. And our objective is to, cover the basics, with training for maintenance excellence services, and at times operational services. But the main thing is to focus on your measurable results. I think that's one of the keys as you implement a CMMS, is to focus on measurable results that'll help you sell, getting a CMMS that you need, and moving forward with the best practices that are going to make that CMMS give you the best value, give you the maximum value. Okay, well, I've enjoyed this, and if there are questions, I'll look to try to answer them for you.
Great. Well, gosh, we're almost at the top of the hour. Thank you so much, Ralph, for putting this together. We do have a couple of questions that came in, and then again there'll be a survey at the end, and you'll be able to tell us if you'd like to receive a copy of the presentation. But someone was asking us about the different advantages of systems that are web-based versus locally hosted, Ralph, and we've certainly been, majority of our implementations have been web-based of late. And in your experience, what have you found to be some of the advantages of having it run a web-based system versus locally hosted?
Well, I think it's evolved to where we can have the information in the cloud and have and really have, I think, better maintenance of our system, from the system side by the vendor. And I think it's a great advantage to have it, you know, in the cloud. And I think, of course, in the area of, let's just say, predictive maintenance, the wireless connections between the systems, vibration analysis, and so forth and so on, has become a commonplace. And that is also being handled in the cloud as well by some companies. So I think that's the direction it's going. Small organizations may continue to have the on-site, but I think the off-site support is a big benefit for a system that's being handled, you know, in the cloud.
Yeah, it does. It seems to be less taxing on companies' infrastructures and IT departments, as well as now that with mobile devices being so prevalent, you know, pretty much everyone is connected all the time, whether we want to be or not. Well, I'm afraid that we are out of time. I did want you to know that as soon as we end the webinar today, there'll be a question. You can indicate if you'd like to receive a copy. I would invite you, I'm sure you have additional questions for Ralph about the scorecard and the benchmarking system. So he's going to be forwarding it to each of you that request it, and then please feel free to continue the dialogue and ask him any questions that you may have. Thanks so much, Ralph. This is really, it's just been a wealth of information and a really excellent reference tool for all of the folks here, no matter where we are in our implementation cycle. So we do appreciate you sharing that. I encourage you to visit Ralph's website. And also, we will ask a brief survey at the end. If there's other topics that we can have Ralph or others present that are important to you, one of the ones that was identified today was how measurements are important. And we want to be sure that we're giving, you know, we're providing you with information that really does address your needs. So please feel free to reach that out, and we can invite Ralph back, and provided he's in the country, as well as some others. So again, our thanks to all of our listeners today who have tuned in, and our thanks to Ralph Peters and the Maintenance Excellence Institute for putting this together. And I hope we'll see you all the next time. Take care.